Hello, Christian Metal Group. We're back again with another great interview. My name is Jimmy Searles, and we have Jay. What's up, man?
Hey, what's up, man? I'm fresh in from church, as y'all can see. I'm not
Yes, sir.
in my usual metal gear.
Hey, you wear that to church too.
Oh man, yeah, I do. I know sometimes. I must admit. I think
Yeah,
this is just a fun fact before we get into this interview. Like a lot of times I'll wear like a usually a solid color button down with a metal t-shirt over it. You know what I'm saying? Something. So I need to hit up what is it, Christian band t-shirts and get some more
shirts.com.
Christian metal
Yeah.
t-shirts. That's
Oh,
what I
it's
need.
Anchor
Check
Merchant.
out our friend's Dark Fit too.
Yeah, oh yeah,
Okay.
heck
Yeah,
yeah. Let's
yeah. Tim,
go.
Nice.
Tim always, yeah, he's always killing it with the
Listen,
designs.
I need some unworthy merch. So we're gonna talk about that obviously
Yes.
like
Oh yeah,
at the end of the at the end of this. But yeah, we're
yeah,
just
for
putting
sure.
it out there early.
Yeah.
Unworthy merch. Let's go. No.
Well, speaking of unworthy, we have Dennis Woods on here, the vocalist for the band. How are you doing, man?
I'm doing good, man.
Great.
Yeah, it's
Well,
just
glad.
been a long week at work so far. Just working a lot of overtime right now, but I'm
Nice.
glad we could do this.
Yes, I am too,
Absolutely,
man.
man. Well, Dennis, tell us, did you grow up in a religious home?
Yes, so I did grow up in a religious home. I grew up like my family is originally from like the North Carolina area, moved to South
Hmm.
Carolina in the 70s. So like I was born and raised in South Carolina. We didn't really go to church early in my life.
Hmm.
Um, my grandfather and my uncle went to Desert Storm in the early 90s. So when they
Okay.
came back, my grandfather kind of had this thing where he was like, "Oh, okay, I think it's kind of time that our family starts looking for a church." And like me and my cousins all went to Christian schools, like private school.
Yeah.
So it was kind of instilled in us, from that age. But we for a little bit went to the church that the school that I went to was associated with, but it was kind of like a big, more like a Pentecostal style thing, and I
Okay.
think that kind of like my grandparents weren't really into that, so they wanted something a little bit
Hmm.
smaller and more traditional. So I
Hmm.
think somebody that my grandfather knew invited him to the church that we went to for most of my life, which was like a tiny little Methodist church.
Okay.
Mm.
That was basically kind of my upbringing. In college, of course, I went to a secular college, so there was, always debates with people over the existence of God and stuff, and um, going to a college Bible study. For a while, I was kind of like, because I was went to a when I went to a Christian high school, we went to a Baptist school where there was
Yeah.
like strict dress codes and there was like a lot of enforcement on rules. So it kind of like rubbed a lot of people the wrong way for many years. So I kind of went through that phase where I was like,
Hmm.
I'm gonna dress how I want, I'm gonna look how I want, I'm gonna do what I want, But I've kind of mellowed out over the years, obviously, and now moved here to California. Was going to a Baptist church for several years, and after my grandfather passed away last year, I kind of went through a lot of personal and spiritual crises, I guess, for a lack of better words.
Yeah.
And I stopped going to church for a while, and I kind of went on a new spiritual journey. I started talking to my wife's father, who about Catholicism because like my wife's family are Catholic, being Mexican, and here in Southern California, and like
Oh
it's
yeah.
something I had never really studied before, so I really got it. So the more I studied it, like the more I kind of fell in love with it, um, and now I'm kind of like in the process of OCIA, and now we all kind of go to church as a family. So it's been a very refreshing thing for us to go to church as a family, which is something I hadn't done in years. Um, so that's kind
Wait,
of where
so
I'm at
so
now.
can you be Catholic and listen to metal? Is that allowed?
Oh, of course. Yeah, it's funny is like one of the first Sundays I was there. Um, the first Sunday I was there actually, or I think first or second Sunday. There's these two little girls that are like ushers, and I saw their dad come in with them, and like I saw he had like big gauges, and he had like sleeves. So like after the service, after mass was over, I immediately walked up to him and introduced myself, and I was like, "Hey, weird question, but you into metalcore music by chance? You just look like that kind of guy." And he goes, "Yeah,"
That's
and I was
not usually
like,
that
"Do you
kind of
play an
guy.
instrument?" And he goes, "Well, I was a vocalist for a metalcore band." And I was
Oh,
like, "That's what that." I was like, "You look like you would be." So, yeah.
nice.
So yeah, there's quite a few people like that. I mean, there's a band out of back in South Carolina in Myrtle Beach called Ritual Servant. It's like a '80s
Oh
thrash
yeah,
Yeah,
band.
very
Uh,
familiar
yeah.
with them.
We interviewed
Patrick's a
I
them.
good
sure
friend of
did.
mine. Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Patrick and I actually knew each other in our previous bands. My previous band opened for his previous band at a show. So I
Okay.
remember, like, after he told me about his conversion, we've kind of been going back and forth sharing our stories about that. And I know Connor from, there's also Connor from Voluntary Mortification as
Volunteer.
well.
Yeah, he
Yep.
guested on one of your songs, of course, also.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we
yeah.
actually interviewed them as well. Yeah.
Oh,
Hmm.
nice. Yeah, all great dudes.
Yeah,
Hmm.
isn't Ritual Servant like more? Well, they say they're Orthodox, right? I mean, similar
Hmm.
to
I
Holy
know
Name.
they're there. I think they all have different backgrounds. Like Jack, the
Yeah.
new guitarist, he's Orthodox.
Hmm.
Patrick's
Okay.
Catholic. Um,
Okay.
but yeah, I think as far as like their lyrical style and their themes, they stay pretty orthodox and liturgical in their lyrics.
Nice.
Very cool. Well, did you grow up in a
Oh,
musical home?
no, I actually no. Like, it's kind of funny. Like, I grew up again in South Carolina, so my grandparents mostly listened to like country, a lot of like whatever was on the country radio stations, um, and me and my mom listened to that too. So, um, being a kid in the '90s, I would see those like '90s commercials of like the EDM like CD collections. It's like, oh,
Hmm.
'90s dance hits, Hadaway, What Is Love, and
Right,
LaBouche,
right, right.
like Real McCoy, and like all these like European like EDM bands, and I was like, oh, this is pumping. Like was it the Mortal Kombat theme when that came out? Like
Hmm.
music like
Yeah.
that. I love that like synth stuff.
Yeah.
So I really liked that in the '90s. And I remember um, I had a buddy in elementary school. I would spend the night at his house, and his mom was a like '80s hair metal fan. So we listened to a lot of like '80s rock at his house. So we were listening to like Twisted Sister and Kiss. And that's when I kind of started getting interested in that, like wanting to play music. And there was a guy that I went to church with that was my age that I saw played guitar, and he listened to a lot of Metallica. So I was watching him play, and I was like, "Oh, I want to learn how to play guitar." So I picked up a guitar and started learning. But
Nice.
it wasn't until like when I got into high school, there was a band from my hometown, and I didn't even realize how big they were at the time. I just bumped into their guitar player. He was working at a like a local Japanese restaurant. He was the
Mm.
cashier, and he had these big gauges. And I was just like, "Hey, do you play music?" And he goes, "Yeah, I play guitar for a band called Through the Eyes of the Dead." He's like, Here, he wrote his number down on a like receipt paper, gave it to me, and was like, "Hey, like, why don't we get together someday and we'll jam at my house, and I can show you my band's music."
Okay.
And they ended up playing some house shows in our town. And
Oh
then,
wow.
like, a few years later, they were like being sold in Hot Topic. Like,
Hmm.
I saw, like, I remember watching MTV Headbangers Ball and seeing their music videos.
Nice.
Oh, that's pretty
So, yeah.
rad.
So I still keep in touch with a couple of those guys. They were definitely like that band, seeing them play the house show. That was when I was like, oh, this is what I want to do with my life.
Hmm.
And then I remember the MySpace era of music.
Yeah.
Discovering bands like Suicide Silence and Job for a Cowboy.
Oh yeah.
And when I heard
Mm.
that kind of music, I was like, ooh, like those guys have some crazy voices. I like impersonating stuff. Let me see if I can impersonate these kind of voices. So I remember doing the song Knee Deep by Job for a Cowboy, and one of my friends heard me, and he goes, dude, like you can do those kind of vocals. And I was like, yeah, what's the big deal? Like I'm just impersonating the way that I hear this guy like sound. And he's like, dude, that's crazy. So after that, that's when I decided instead of playing, even though I still play guitar, I was like, maybe I should like look into becoming a vocalist. And that's when like I kind of like around that time formed my first band that I was in as a
Mhm.
vocalist.
Nice.
Cool.
Well, that's awesome, man. So,
Yeah.
how long has what year did that Unworthy actually form?
So unworthy, I'm trying to think. So I moved here to Southern California in about 2015, and I would say probably a couple years after working and settling down, I just kind of had this itch to want to write music again.
Okay.
And like I just remember one night I was like going to sleep, and like all these lyrics started popping into my head. And I was like, I gotta write this down. I gotta write this down. So I remember the next day, like I like wrote all this stuff on like a Word document on my phone and kind of emailed it to myself so I wouldn't forget it. And then I remember, like picking up my 7 string guitar, and I was like, chug, chug, chug. This is how I want this song to sound. But I was like, how am I ever gonna like make this like into a recording?
Yeah.
And one day I was driving back and forth to work, and this guy's name just popped in my head that was in a local band in Florence. And I was like, oh, I wonder what he's up to. I was like, I hadn't talked to him in years. I don't even know if he still has the same phone number, if he'll even talk to me. So I just shot him a text and I said, hey, Zane, how's it going, man? And he's like, oh, Dennis, good to hear from you, man. I'm doing good. And I was like, hey, like, I just kind of felt moved to write this song, and I wrote these guitar riffs for it. Can I send it to you if you still have your recording studio? And he's
Hmm.
like, yeah, dude, totally. So I remember, like, within a few weeks, he started writing music with me, and we did the first Unworthy EP together.
Okay.
And I had recorded vocals with a guy from my church at the time. He had a little studio at his house, so I was recording vocals there while Zane was writing and recording all the music where he was living at in the Columbia area. And after that, he kind of started his own business, and we kind of lost touch. And I was like, well, I don't want to give up on this. So
Mm.
there was another band from the Columbia area called Ninja Loot. I don't know if you're familiar
Oh
with them.
yeah.
So
I've never
Daryl,
seen them, but I am familiar with them. Yeah.
yeah, so Daryl, I had a band with their other guitar player Daniel for a little bit,
Okay.
and
Okay.
I remember Daryl had sent me like a bunch of unused demos for Ninja Loot and was like, "Hey, like I've got these songs that are never going to get used if you just want to use them for yourself." So I kind of made like a piece together a second EP out of that, and I was just like, "Well, this isn't really, a consistent formula for making music." Just kind of asking random people to help me out. So
Mm.
one day when I was going to the church that I was at previously, one of the guitar players there, I just happened to ask him, I was like, hey, do you know anybody interested that would want to do a metal project? Because I've heard you talk about like being into metal and stuff. And he goes, well, not me personally, but my friend Jordan. This was like, I think right after COVID, so like 2021. He was like,
Okay.
he's like, my buddy Jordan, he just like bought himself like a bunch of recording equipment, and he's been recording instrumentals, and he's looking for a vocalist for
Mhm.
like his music. So like he gave me Jordan's number, and I texted him and I said, hey Jordan, like I'm looking to do something that kind of sounds like, I don't know, like a much heavier version of For Today.
Yeah.
um so I remember he sent me a track that he wrote that same day that was the first song for our next EP together, In the Face of Death. Like he wrote it in a day.
Mm.
And
Wow.
then I was like, okay, well, let me send you some more lyrics. And probably within a couple weeks, like we wrote the entire EP together. I was going
Nice.
back and forth to his place, and we were just like cranking out songs. And
That's
then, like I let him kind of like take the reins on our social media. I let him take the reins on just kind of like getting our name out there, because he was more into that all that stuff than I was, as far as like the social media marketing and all that. So
Sure. Yeah.
all of a sudden, like within like once the album came out, we were getting follows from bands like Holy Name, like I mentioned earlier. Joe Mustin from Advent followed us. And
Nice.
then all of a sudden, like Rottweiler Records was following us, and then we were like, "Oh, well, shoot!" Like we started going back and forth, and that's how we got on Rottweiler. And then I was like, "Oh, wow, this is going to be a much bigger
So,
thing than I ever expected it to be."
so was that with Gyrus on
Yeah,
Rottweiler
so it
or
was in
or
between
before?
because yeah,
Oh,
initially, yeah, Sean wanted us to be on a different label that he had, and we were just
yeah,
like, "No, that's not going to work for what we
the Mythic
want."
Panda.
Right. Now, this was he had his Sean had like a more extreme metal label with like a
I
few
do remember
bands on it.
that.
I can't remember
Oh,
what the
okay.
name of the label was at the time,
Yeah, me
but
either.
we were just like, no, we don't think that's a good fit. And then when Sean like sold Rottweiler to Gyrus, we were just like, oh, like, so we hit up Gyrus, and then Gyrus is like, oh, well, I think you guys would be a great fit for Rottweiler, and that's when we signed with Rottweiler.
Nice. Yeah, he's such a good dude. That's
Oh,
awesome.
absolutely. Yeah.
Well, so you basically started as one man band. You found somebody a couple times, but now you're a full 5 piece.
Right, yeah, and so that came about through Jordan just kind of connecting and networking with people. So
Mhm.
like Jordan started playing bass for a band called Classic Disaster, which were kind of like a metalcore-ish kind of band,
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
their drummer, I guess, like their was talking to Jordan about possibly wanting to play drums for us, and we were kind of going back and forth and practicing with them for a while, and it didn't work out at first, and then like after, then eventually he came back and was like, "Hey, let me take another shot at this. I've kind of, want to try this again," and then he fit right in. But around that same time, Eli left the band Cultist. And
Oh yeah.
when Eli left Cultist, he had been already kind of going back and forth with Jordan. Jordan had kind of developed a good friendship with him. And Eli was like, hey, like, I have all these unused songs for Cultist. I would really love to just be in a band that's like Christ centered, and I would love to just be able to use these songs that I haven't used. And we were like, dude, we would love for
Super
you
cool.
to be able to
Nice.
make music with us. So, and then Anthony, he came from another local band as well. Kind of
Mhm.
like with Eli, he was like, well, I'm looking for something that's more Christ centered and focused. Um,
Yeah.
and we were just like, yeah, dude, we need a bassist. We would love to have you. And Anthony's just kind of a madman on any instrument he touches. So
Nice.
he's just a great asset to the
That's
band. And
cool.
then having all those guys now write and exchange ideas is just crazy. Like I think
So that
within like the first month they all joined, like I would see our like group chat like blow up. Like they wrote like I think between the three of them they wrote like a dozen songs within like a couple months. It was crazy.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
So those guys are all local to you.
Yeah, yeah. Like I would
Nice.
say, probably with hour and a half drive, depending on traffic.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, sure enough.
Awesome.
Yeah, so of course, you talked about your journey into extreme metal, but what, as far as metal subgenre, how would you classify yourself?
Oh, good
For
question.
us personally, I mean, I guess I would consider it deathcore. Like,
Okay.
that's
Yeah.
probably the best way I would describe it because I know, like, for us, like the biggest obvious inspiration would probably be bands like Impending Doom, uh,
Right.
with
Yeah.
Blood Comes Cleansing,
Yeah.
In the Midst of Lions. If
Right.
What
for
about
I,
those
hope?
who
What
remember
about
them,
hope deferred?
Hope Deferred. Yeah, I just started checking them out pretty recently, and
yeah.
they're mind blowing too.
Oh yeah, I
They are
remember
so
when I
good.
when I first heard you all, I definitely thought of it. Reminded me of just remind me of the glory days of like independent doom coming out and people like just
Yeah,
being so blown away by
like
it and stuff.
those like early 2000s face down bands.
Yeah, yeah, it gave me that feeling for sure, which is a great
Hey,
thing.
I say wear the influences proudly on your sleeve and carry the torch. I
Absolutely.
don't have a
Oh,
problem with
definitely.
it. Yeah,
Yeah, man. I mean,
that's
extreme
awesome.
metal is what. Yeah, extreme metal is what it is, man. I mean, I'm all for it. I think that just thinking about the progression of death metal to deathcore and stuff like Um, I think that I guess there's a certain skill level of music for sure, musicianship you have to be at in order to attempt and actually nail deathcore. And I'm
And,
definitely
yeah.
here for sure. Um, I'm trying to think. Is there? I guess like say if you all are writing songs or whatever, is there a certain level of like I guess heaviness or whatever that where you all just like
Yeah.
okay yeah that's it you know what I'm saying you have like a
Right. Yeah.
criteria.
I don't know. Like, yeah, because usually, like, I mean, between Jordan and Eli and Anthony, I think they all kind of have their own ways of writing. Like,
Hmm.
for Eli, it's like a lot of on the like, I guess you would call it like slam or beat down breakdowns that he writes, which I
Hmm.
just love because of that like cultist influence. It's just dun 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 dun,
Yeah, oh chug
and then like
everywhere.
Jordan, like I know he's more into stuff like the deathcore bands like Die Artist Murder, where it's more
Yeah, the hardest murders.
focused on the guitar riffs and more intricate breakdowns.
Hmm.
And then Anthony, he's more of like as far as I know, like early metalcore, like As I Lay Dying kind of style stuff.
Okay,
So
okay.
he also likes a lot of that riffs and breakdowns.
Riffs,
So
yes,
they
I'm here
all kind
for
of
it.
have like different styles of that coming into it with writing. But I know, like, I think for the guys, like, they all, yeah, we kind of all like send each other demos of what we're working on, and we kind of like figure out how we can mesh it together.
Yeah, so live, do
That's
you all do
awesome.
live shows around that
Yeah.
area or okay,
Yeah,
cool.
so we have been we've been doing live shows since like trying to think, like, was it November or October 2024, somewhere around that
Okay.
time.
Okay. Yeah.
Nice.
What's the crowd response? Like,
Oh, I mean, yeah, it's fun. Like, you know, we played Chain Reaction like multiple times in Anaheim, and I
hmm
mean, we've had the opportunity to play with some amazing bands. We've
hmm
opened for Confessions of a Traitor
Yeah.
while they were on
Oh
tour.
yes.
They're like,
I saw
in
them when they
fact,
came through.
yeah, I
I,
remember we saw them play like a couple years ago with Convictions when they came through, and I
hmm
remember we were talking to them, and they said, "Hey, like, we want you guys to play with us the next time we play here because."
nice.
So like when we finally had a full band lineup, I remember they messaged us and said, "Hey, we're coming back through. We're telling the Chain Reaction that you guys are opening."
Yeah.
So yeah,
Steve,
so that was a
Steve,
real cool opportunity.
Steven is one of the nicest guys. It's so cool. We had to
Yeah.
interview him, and then like a year after that, they came to my city. I'm like, you got to be kidding! Like, I cannot miss this show.
Yeah,
Uh,
Steven's such a cool dude, and I
yeah.
just love his like soft spoken posh British accent.
Yes.
Yeah.
I saw. Yeah. So they were on tour with Meadows, which those guys are out of Alabama, and
Yeah.
Okay.
boy. He's like, I'm going to take you to some redneck stuff, boy. He said when we go to my town.
That's
But
funny.
that was
Yeah.
also that was the first time I saw Cleansing of the Temple,
Oh,
and
nice.
actually No Treaty was at that. That was the first time I saw
Oh,
No
cool.
Treaty.
What a lineup.
Yeah.
Yeah,
What a
it
lineup.
was it
That's
was pretty dope.
crazy.
Oh, that's it. Yeah.
Yo, so
Yeah.
what's
So we've played with them. We there's a band here called Oblige that was made up of some of the OG members from Impending Doom that
oh
we
wow,
played
Oh
okay.
with,
wow,
and that was a really cool opportunity. The guitar player Eric, who played for Impending Doom on a couple of their albums, he actually came
Mhm.
up to us and bought up some of our merch. So I was
Yeah.
oh
like, "Oh
wow,
wow, Eric from that used to be in Impending Doom wants our merch. Like that's so awesome."
yeah,
And then like
that's cool.
it's one of the, yeah, it's a crazy thing, like if we go to shows like we'll like when we went to go see Demon Hunter, we see people like in the audience wearing our shirts or like coming up to us and
That's
recognizing us.
cool.
So that's always a really cool thing. And I mean, yeah, the audience reaction at shows. um I remember, like I did a podcast with a couple guys here in Fontana a while back, and I was sharing this story. Like, I think it was the night we played with Oblige. We were
Okay.
all like super sick, but I remember like we unveil. It was the first night we played the song "A Suicide Mission," and we announced
Oh
that we were
yeah,
working on a new EP. And I remember there was these two kids with like their phones held up, and they were like, like the whole time, like because I think there was like the bass drop at the beginning of the song, and I could just see them go,
Man,
and I was like, that's the reaction that I'm looking for.
I gotta
But
tell you, I listened to that song and I love it. It is
yeah,
that is such a great song.
I think my favorite song to play live the last few times has been "Forsaken by God," because the last
Ah,
several times, the last three or four times we played it, like I guess it's just it's so because we played it so much, people know the lyrics now, so people will
mm.
rush the stage and grab my mic and start screaming it with me.
Oh
And
wow,
like
that's so
that,
fun.
I think that's just
That's right.
like, yeah, I think that's like just being able to interact with people that want to scream
Yeah,
your lyrics back to you is just such a huge rush.
right.
And that's
Sounds
like
like
my favorite thing about performing.
you, you got a pretty cool scene there, huh? I was going to
Yeah,
Yeah,
ask
yeah,
you
for sure,
about.
for sure.
I mean, it's one thing to
yeah,
have a music scene, but you actually have you're a Christian deathcore band. So I was going to ask, like, how does that actually fit into the scene in your area?
Mm.
it's growing. I mean, there's I mean, of course, I think back in the day you had bands like Impending Doom, The Great Commission, Sleeping Giant. They were all from this area. So like the IE has spawned a ton of famous bands. And then in the
Okay,
secular
Okay.
side, you've got bands like Winds of Plague, Suicide Silence,
love ones.
bands like that that were also big in this area. So it's always been a
Mm,
thing here, I
okay.
think. But I've noticed that, the because of things like Spotify, because of YouTube, um, it's able for people to get a bigger platform now where they weren't able to do that before without having to constantly tour and make themselves known.
Yeah,
So I think I've seen like the Christian scene in general like blow up because I remember I would say about 2009 2010 bands were just breaking up all the time. You would see, oh, band announces their last album, their final tour. um like For Today, Sleeping Giant, In the Mist Alliance, all those Plea for Purging, like all those bands were breaking up, and it was like back to back to back to back to back. But now it's like you see bands like Convictions, Confessions of a Traitor, uh, all these bands out there now are just making a name for themselves in the scene, and it's becoming huge again. And of course, you've got Demon Hunter, who's still leading the way after 20 some years. So I think it's still a thing and it's still popular, and I think it's kind of becoming a thing again.
Nice.
yeah, very cool. So here's my last maybe live question for now.
Yeah.
What's the craziest thing you've ever seen in a mosh pit?
Oh, I think that's
Especially
another
church shows.
story. In a pit, I think I remember the first time I went to a Scream the Prayer tour in North Carolina.
Okay.
I remember walking in. I think it was during the Great Commission. I saw like a line of like teenage kids all two-stepping in unison, which was awesome. But I had a buddy of mine who was like super massive. I mean, his guy was like, probably close to 300 pounds, over 6 feet tall, big, bulky football
Mm.
player build. And I was in the balcony of the venue, and I was like, it was during For Today, and I think it might have been during like Isaiah the Willing. There's that one breakdown where it's like, this is the end of the world. And I remember he threw his fist back, and there was a guy that walked behind him, and this
Oh
guy was
no.
equally big,
Oh.
and he knocked this guy out cold. And I just saw that guy
What?
fall to the ground, and I saw my buddy pick him up and like drag him out of the venue, and like it was crazy.
Yeah,
Wow.
that sounds insane. That is so
Yeah.
funny.
But I think like craziest show story I've ever seen was when I saw the Chariot play the
Oh,
same
yeah, Harriet's
venue.
always.
Their guitar player Steven, he climbed up in the balcony and he walked on a railing over like the entire audience and like
Oh
jumped.
wow.
So he dove a good 15 to 20 feet down, and the audience caught him. But I was like, dude, like that was a
He
large fall.
he was lucky they caught him.
Yeah,
I know
yeah.
that's right.
That
Yo, that would have been a disaster. Oh my God.
I mean,
so
I'm
Whoa.
terrified of heights, so I couldn't imagine like what
Yeah.
yeah.
that like doing anything like that.
Yeah. Are people
That
mostly
just
more? Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No,
I
you go ahead. Go ahead.
was gonna say, are people kind of more? You think people more like chill at the unworthy shows, or they kind of are they kind of
No, I
medium?
mean, we did have a fight break out in the last show we played,
Oh,
and it was during us too. So, um,
yeah, there
Oh,
were Demon
I
Hunter
just
fans and Still
yeah,
fans.
there
Yeah.
was I think it was like I think it was a birthday party of all things, and
Oh wow!
yeah, it was I guess there was like, there was a guy and a girl, and he swung and hit her, and she was like, "Hey, you don't
oh,
hit a girl in the pit," and she retaliated, and he started fighting, so people jumped him, and like it stopped, and I was like, when we stopped playing, I was like, "Hey, is everybody good? I thought I saw something going on out there." So
Mhm.
everybody was like, "Yeah, we're good, we're fine." So
yeah.
we kept playing, and the last song we finished with was Judgment Denied, and it was like right there at the final breakdown. Next thing you know, I see like dozens of people crowding this one guy and like wailing on him, and we're like playing the last few notes of the song. So I'm like, do I stop? Do we stop the song like mid breakdown, or do we just keep playing?
Oh,
Because I
wow.
was like, we only have like 5 seconds of the song left. I don't know what to do. So as soon as we stopped playing, I was like, hey, like what's going on, everybody? Like, and then like there was a big argument, and then like they kicked the guy out for inciting the fight.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. That's
Uh,
good stuff. Yeah, man.
yeah. I was just gonna say that reminds me of a couple shows. One, it was Josh Scoggins. I believe it was with Norma Jean on a Solid State tour.
Yeah.
And did you ever go to Uncle Doctors in Columbia?
I
Did you
think I've
remember
heard
that?
the
It
name,
was.
but I don't think I ever went there.
Anyways, they had these big I beams, and he climbed up the I beam like that.
Oh,
Josh was always doing stuff like
Oh
that.
yeah,
And then one
yeah. You
time
know
I
what?
saw,
True. Yes.
yeah, I saw Beloved in North Carolina. Probably with Zayo. There was like no stage. It
Yeah.
was on the floor,
Oh God, that
and
had
the
been
bass
crazy.
player he hit the leads. He hit the singer in the head, and he had blood coming down his head.
Oh
So he
wow,
like
yeah.
stood up and kicked him as hard as he could. Man, it was that is just good memories.
The last time
Okay.
me and my wife saw Zayo was they played here in
Yes.
California a few years ago, and the guitar player Russ jumped out in the audience during 5 Year Winter during the breakdown, and like I guess the audience didn't catch him correctly, so he hit the ground, and like
Oh,
his guitar like went into his mouth, and like I
Oh.
guess he
oh
broke the
no!
headstock off in his mouth and ripped out his lip rings, and he was just bleeding
Ouch!
everywhere. And
Oh
I
my
remember
god!
Dan kind of like stopped, and he was like, I think we should just end it now. He's like, I don't think you're okay to keep playing. And he's like, you
Yeah,
don't even have a guitar, like you're bleeding all over the place. We need to get you cleaned up. So yeah, that was pretty crazy.
that's rough, man.
Jesus, Russ is
Yeah,
always hurting himself, dude. On he.
dude, he is man. Last time I saw him maybe 2 years ago here in the Greenville area,
Yeah.
and he had a huge bandage on his big toe because this was maybe like the second show of the tour. And the first show, he busted his toe,
Jeez.
and so he was like
Have
playing with
mercy.
no shoes on. Just he was crazy.
I
He
know
goes
he
all out
like
though.
I think he actually had to leave the band for like an extended period of
Yeah,
time
he did.
because
Yeah,
he
just
broke his leg, like
yeah. From when
doing one of
he
Oh,
was
those jumps that he does.
yeah, those jumps to the knees on his knees.
Yeah.
Yes, that
Now,
happened.
man, I
Yeah.
tell you,
oh,
that's
speaking of
rough.
that, I remember a Living Sacrifice show where Bruce almost broke his leg. And
Ooh.
Oh,
like they were at the New Brooklyn Tavern, and they were playing Reject, and he jumped and he landed on his knees and he
Uh,
fell over. And I remember he like grabbed the microphone and he was like, I think I like broke something. He's like, I need to go to the hospital, but we don't want to stop. So if someone could pick me up and set me down on a chair, I will finish this set and then we can call 911.
oh
So
my
like somebody,
gosh!
so like a bunch of like people picked up, got a bar stool, they set him down, like put his guitar in his lap. They picked right back up from the breakdown, finished the set, And then he goes, okay, call 911. And I remember he's being carried out on a stretcher, and this guy runs up to him with like a vinyl of the hammering process, and was like, "Dude, Bruce, I'm so sorry to like be this rude, but can you please sign this for me?" And Bruce was like, "No, dude." He's like, "That's why we came out here tonight." He's like, "Of course I'm gonna sign this for you."
That's so cool.
Wow,
I,
Yeah,
dude, yeah, man, it's a
I,
lot of
absolute legends, man.
yeah, definitely.
yeah.
I think my first crazy experience in a pit was definitely a living sacrifice show. And
Yeah.
people were already going so crazy, and it was muddy. I was standing on a chair, and like maybe three, and I was filming too. I gotta put this on like the net, but I know it had been like maybe 20 seconds in the film, and yeah, I fell off the chair, and it was
Oh no.
it was so dumb, dude. It was so I gotta find that. But yeah, Zale
Oh
show is
man.
definitely always great. But I think that
I,
like deathcore, and just the shows,
Oh
um,
yeah,
it's such it's I guess it's just a way of connect, that people connect to each other, whether it be like crazy
oh
shows
definitely.
or just whatever. It's just something about it. It's a certain energy, man, that like you just can't beat it, man. And I think, I love that. And I can't wait to see like Unworthy live, like, for myself
yes.
and see how that goes. So yeah,
Nope.
I mean, my next question, then I'm gonna let Jimmy like just go ham. But as a vocalist, like one thing I like to ask vocalists is about their particular vocal techniques because, um I know extreme metal isn't always the easiest. For some, it might be easy, but for especially those that don't do it on a regular basis, me included, like I do it sometimes, but tonight, on a night like tonight, my vocals have been more so teaching choir music.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, what if you have any tips and techniques that you could give to the people, give to us about, as far as your approach to extreme metal vocals, fire away.
Yeah, for sure. Like again, I didn't come from like a musical family, so I never really had any prior training. So it kind of started out for me just like impersonating what I heard in music. So I
Mhm.
remember like the first time hearing like the death metal bands like Cannibal Corpse and 6 Feet Under, I was like, ooh, 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 kind of like mocking that, and I was like, oh, anybody could do that. But then like when it came to hearing like Suicide Silence, A Job for a Cowboy,
Yes,
where there were like different ranges, I was like,
yes.
oh, let me see if I can imitate that. And when I could do it without hurting my voice, I was like, oh, maybe I have the knack for doing this. But it wasn't until like years later because people would ask me, oh, how do you do it? And I was like, I really don't know. Like, I just do it. But like started like Jordan and like of course like I don't Christian from Diamonds to Dust, like I asked him
Mhm.
for some vocal tips too. But I started checking out like YouTube channels like Extreme Vocal Institute. So like,
Mm.
I mean, yeah, if your voice is hurting when you're screaming, then definitely doing something wrong. It shouldn't be hurting. You should be able to expel without putting any strain on your throat, obviously.
Mhm.
Couple
Okay.
big things is as far as like breathing techniques is to breathe through your diaphragm. So when you breathe, your stomach is expanding, but your chest is not. So put one hand on your chest and one hand on your stomach to make
Mhm.
sure that the hand on your stomach is the only thing that's moving when you breathe in. So when you breathe in, your stomach inflates. When you breathe out, your
Okay.
stomach deflates. And then sometimes when you take a breath, instead of exhaling like go do a hiss.
Okay.
It's gonna go much longer. It's gonna eventually allow you to like use up that breath over a much extended period of time. So that way, eventually, you're able to hold those notes out longer.
That's
Um,
good stuff.
yeah. So obviously, diet, which is something I need to be working on, um, definitely helps as well. Um, a lot of things also are mouth shape and tongue position in the mouth change the tone of the vocals. So, for
Oh
example,
wow.
like I used to do a lot of screaming with my tongue like this at the top of
Hmm.
my mouth to do, but now I do more stuff like this, uh, and it actually it makes it much more
Yeah.
guttural.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
that.
yeah.
Nice.
So yeah, to me, it has a much more brutal sound than if you did the tongue the opposite direction.
Okay. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
good stuff,
that was
man.
something that Christian and taught me a lot too. Was like, yeah, he's like the tongue and kind of like trying to raise your sinuses when you're screaming. That kind of
Mhm.
gives you that like goblin voice that he kind of has.
Okay. Very interesting.
Yeah, yeah,
Well,
absolutely.
man, so I've been checking out your Spotify, which you got almost 10,000 monthly listeners. That's pretty amazing.
Nice.
Yeah.
Something
So,
I would have never imagined. Like
oh man,
all my life would have
that's
never thought. Yeah.
no, it's pretty incredible. So I just want to read everybody what you have on here so that they kind of give them a little
Yeah.
more idea about the band. For those who haven't heard the band yet, so it says since day one, the mission of UnWorthy has been to spread the gospel through heavy music fashion. So if you're wondering, is this a Christian band? I think we just answered that for you there.
Right.
After two genre defining releases for the band under Rottweiler Records, one of our favorite labels,
Mm-hmm.
UnWorthy has made a name for themselves in the Christian heavy music scene with their brutal deathcore sound. They have worked with and featured artists on their tracks from acts such as With Blood Comes Cleansing, Diamonds to Dust, and Holy Name, which those are bands that we all love.
Oh,
So
of course.
that's
Yeah.
pretty incredible. That's awesome, man. Um, so, uh, I mean, we can kind of figure out, okay, UnWorthy, what that means, but how did you come up with that name and with the stylization and the logo?
Yeah. So, um, it came from a couple of different places. Like, one of the first things that kind of inspired me was there was a band at the time that I was listening to called Creations. They were like
Okay.
an Australian deathcore band. Well, they started out as a hardcore band for their first album, and then they changed vocalists and they went a little more deathcore-ish. And they had an album
Yeah.
called Unworthy Humility, and the album cover had a guy with a cross on his back, and when he was carrying it, the cross was upside down. And there's a lyric in one of the songs that says, so carry that cross upside down on your two beams. And in Catholicism and some Protestants use this symbol as well as the inverted cross being a symbol of unworthiness because church history teaches that Peter was crucified upside down.
Right.
So that was something I always wanted to incorporate in the logo. And like when Convictions had the same thing on their one shirt, which I kind of wish
Oh,
I had gotten to first before they got to the design, but it is what it is. It was just a thing of timing.
yeah.
So, but it is a cool shirt. I have my Conviction shirt. I wear it all
Yeah.
the time. But it's something that kind of like it raises eyebrows and heads will turn when they see it because a lot of people don't know that's what that means. So it's a way to start conversation as well. Um, but with the band name and the way that it's stylized with the "un" in quotation or not quotation marks in parentheses, there was a
Mm-hmm.
band, another band that I listened to for a while called Reflections. They were like a gent band, and they had a song on one of their albums where like it was the word exist, but the S in exist was in parentheses, so it was like interpreted as either exit or exist. And I was like, oh, so they use that as a way to like take one word to give it like two possible
Ah,
meanings. So that's what I wanted to do with Unworthy. So I wanted like so my original concept for the logo would have been the inverted cross in front of the word unworthy, and then like the right side up cross at the end of unworthy. But if
Mm-hmm.
you take out the like parentheses, you see worthy. So it's the idea of how we see ourselves sometimes as unworthy,
Love that.
but when God looks at us, He looks through us through the lens of
oh,
His Son Jesus.
nice.
Super
Yeah.
cool. Love the thought y'all put in
Yeah,
that, man.
I know that's pretty rad. Yeah, if you're up for some controversy, just post a photo of that conviction shirt in the Christian metal group.
Oh,
Oh man, like yeah, when we played, I'm trying to remember. I think it was the show we played with yeah, it was the show we played with Confessions of a Traitor. I wore
mhm.
that shirt, and we
Nice.
we had a post that like a short that Jordan posted that went viral because it was like I said something about like the world being messed up, and I said but take heart, Jesus has overcome the world,
Mhm.
and like there like got thousands of views and comments. But then there were so many comments. Oh, like, if you're a Christian, why are you wearing a shirt that's so blasphemous? Like, what are you thinking? Like, and I was like, I'm not going to sit here and answer all these comments.
Yeah, that's cool. Actually, I saw Convictions with War of Ages about 4 or 5 years ago. That was a great
Oh, no.
show.
Yeah.
Can't remember who else played that. Earthbones was at that show. That's what it
Oh,
was.
sick. Yeah.
Okay.
I haven't heard anything from them in a while.
Yeah,
Right.
I think I think they like the original guitar player left, and then they kind of did like one EP,
Uh,
and then they just kind of like,
yeah.
I don't know what happened after that. I see Jeremy still post stuff all the time. Like he's still
Is it?
posting videos of him doing vocal covers.
Oh,
He's still
okay.
got the same mustache
He's,
too.
oh yeah, you can't miss it.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, that's cool. So you know what? There are two songs that I think that you all done. Of course, you all got a couple of releases, whatever. But there's two songs that stood out to me. I talked about you all having Connor on as a special guest.
Yes.
And what was that like for Forsaken by God? Actually, wow, I'm looking back at the what is this? I guess it's 7 songs. Or is it like, do y'all consider that album? I guess you can say, we'll just say it's an album. I know some people be
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
7
I guess you could
songs
say album.
EP, but we'll
Yeah.
say album. But it's actually the first 2 songs. I'm now looking at it, but Forsaken by God, of course, features Connor. Let's talk about that song. What was it like working with him? And yeah, what do you
It,
think about just that song overall, as far as lyrics and?
I mean, yeah, it's still definitely like I said earlier, probably my favorite song to play live because I think it gets the most audience participation. Because that
Okay.
opening breakdown, the Eli, Eli, lama sabachthani, my God,
Yeah.
why have you forsaken me? The audience just loves that back and forth. So I've been like handing the microphone back, to, screaming back and forth. So that's always real fun. But I mean, lyrically, yeah, I mean, This Present Darkness was definitely one of the most like cathartic things that I've written
Yeah,
because
this Present Darkness is, I think I
because
said the second song, yes.
yeah, when I wrote, yeah, because when I was writing that, like, because I started writing it while we were recording, Where Light Divides, and I
Okay.
was just struggling a lot when we were recording it because my grandmother had died not too long after we had recorded the first EP together, In the Face of Death. So I was still kind of dealing with that when we were recording Where the Light Divides,
Hmm.
and I was just kind of having trouble at my job and things like that, and we were still dealing with COVID at the time and finances and all that stuff. So there's just a lot of things going on at the time that were just kind of discouraging. And when I was getting into the studio, I was just having trouble, like you know, uh, hitting the mark when we were recording. So I remember I just kind of started writing about how furious I was and how upset I was and how I just
Hmm.
kind of felt like my prayers weren't being heard or listened to. I just kind of felt like alone, I guess you would say, in a sense, like in that kind of. So I started writing, and then of course the more I wrote and the more that I kind of like dug into the Bible and started reading about people like Elijah or Peter or other people that even had their doubts. Um, the more I kind of use that for the kind of inspiration for the later songs on the album that kind of had this turnaround. So I was like, oh well, how about we make this super dark album, where it's like at the beginning, this person that thinks that God has abandoned them, and like we even lead crescendo to like the devil like putting these thoughts in their head and telling them that just to give up on life,
Wow.
and then we'll kind of have an interlude, and then the rest of the album will be about how like God finally answers this person realizes, oh well, God was with me in my suffering the entire time. And
Right.
that's kind of like I remember hearing an apologist named John Lennox say, because there's always that the atheist argument: if God is good, why does evil exist? Or
Mhm.
why would a
Right.
good God let his creation suffer? And John Lennox had this beautiful rebuttal that said that God is not removed from our suffering to the point where he came to earth in the form of his own son to be, you know, rejected by man and to die upon the cross.
Mm.
And the focal point of all Christianity in itself is suffering.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Wow.
that's kind of like the what made, like I said, made the album cathartic is the more that I wrote, the more, yeah, like those later songs came about, and it just was so powerful at the time.
Yeah, and I know there's the scripture in Ephesians about this present darkness, but I mean, like it definitely brought to mind like who was it, Frank Peretti?
Yeah,
The
I think there was a book series or a book that was called This
yes,
Present Darkness, because I know, like, I think
Yes.
Gyrus, when we
Yep.
submitted it to Rottweiler, they were like, "Hey, you weren't like purposely stealing from the book, were you?" And I was like, "Oh, I didn't even think that was a thing. Like, I was just using This Present Darkness as like a general term for like
right, yeah,
this
yeah, yeah,
No.
dark period in life that I was."
yeah,
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 he has a sequel too. I've read this Present Darkness. It's actually a
yeah.
pretty
I read
good
it back in the
book.
day.
Yeah, it's been a long time. What's the other one? Is like Piercing the Darkness or something, I believe. Something like
Yeah,
that.
it's been so long, but yes, I remember
Yeah.
that.
I
Absolutely.
remember seeing like those books in all the bookstores when I was a kid.
Yes.
It was like the
Yes.
Christian fiction or like even Christian horror type
Yeah.
thing.
Hmm.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
That's hilarious, man. Yeah, so just speaking, this is just random again. So I guess we all grew up like um in an era where there were actually Christian bookstores and stuff.
Yes.
So yeah, so what are your memories? This is just weird, but yeah, what are your memories of like going to the Christian store? Was there a section you gravitated towards? Was there music you got to listen to in the stores?
Yeah, so I mean, like when I got into like Zayo, I remember the way I got into them, and this is how I got into the Christian metalcore in general. Was there was a
Mm,
guy that I had a class with in high school, and I remember one day he was like, we had to wear button down shirts and khakis and stuff. But after
mm,
class let out for the day, we were, all out in the parking lot, and I saw him like take off like his button down, and he had a Zayo t-shirt. And I was like, "Hey
nice.
man, like what is Zayo?" And he goes, "Oh, it's this awesome like hardcore band that my brother got me into." And I was like, "Hardcore? Like you mean like POD?" And he goes, "No, dude, not like POD at all.
Like
Much
POD.
heavier."
Love it.
So I remember he gave my cousin, who was they were kind of like skating buddies, and he gave my cousin the self-titled album, I think, at the time. So I remember getting in the car with my cousin, and I think it was 5 Year Winter, like started, and you
Mm,
just hear do 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 do, and I was like,
Yes.
what
yeah.
is, mind blown. I just hear him like Dan screaming the like that raspy, throaty scream that he had, and I was
Hmm.
just like, what is this? So I remember going to one of the Christian bookstores, and I think this was around the time that Zayo released Created Chaos and the re-recording of
Yeah.
All Else Failed. So I remember hearing the song Resistance, the re-recorded version with Dan on vocals, and I
Hmm.
was like,
Mm.
"Oh, that's sick! I got to pick this up." And then, of course, Norma Jean had just dropped "Bless the Martyr, Kiss the Child." Demon Hunter just dropped the self-titled. Living Sacrifice had just come out with like Symbiotic. Um, or no, Conceived in Fire is the name of the album. So I remember picking up all those albums and like the Hammering Process by Living
So you
Sacrifice.
so you were spending all your money at the Christian bookstore is what you're
Oh,
saying.
like when I found out that
Yeah.
music like that existed, yes, yeah.
I remember hitting up the dollar bin cassettes even before that, man. Uh I got I don't even know if y'all remember these, but Believable Picnic and Black Eyed Skiva or Siva, however you
Yes.
say it. Those
Absolutely.
I think I remember
yeah.
Black Eyed Skiva. Yeah.
Yeah, man. I wore those out and that first car had a little cassette player. I listened to them
Hmm.
over and
Yeah.
over. That's so
What?
good
What's?
memories.
I found a cassette tape at a local Salvation Army of a band, the Testament, or no, Sacrament. I'm sorry,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sacrament.
Yeah. Yeah.
Testimony of
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
Apocalypse. And I was
Nice.
like, "What is this?" And I found out they were on the same label as Living Sacrifice when Living
Yes.
Sacrifice was
Rex
a
Records.
thrash metal
Yeah.
band. Yeah, Rex
Hmm.
Records, I think is what it was called.
Yeah,
REX.
that's right.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. So I
That's a
was like, "Oh,
score.
that." Yeah, like you had all those bands like that, like Deliverance and yeah,
Vengeance
Testament,
Rising.
or not Testament,
Yeah.
Tourniquet. Yeah.
Journey,
Vengeance
yes. I was
Rising.
gonna say
Yeah.
yes. I would say the two big labels, Record
Mortification.
Records
D-
and
I think
also Intense Records.
Mortification is like that one band I think that like set the bar for everybody.
Oh
Scrolls of the
yeah,
Yeah.
Megaloth.
yeah,
Yeah. Do you know this one? Right here is Light Force. You know
That
that
name
one?
sounds familiar.
yeah. That
Yeah.
was who Mortification was before they
That
became
Oh,
Morph.
yeah.
okay. Yeah.
It was kind of like along the lines of Blood Good, like that
Yeah.
kind of music.
Yeah. I
Kind of.
remember when
Wow,
I
they were
was in college, I got into really deep underground like Christian stuff. Like I had a
Mhm.
buddy of mine that was like share all this stuff with me, like vomitorial corpulence and like the
Oh
oh
God,
yeah.
I love
crazy
that band.
underground stuff.
One of my favorite
Yeah.
bands ever, man.
Yeah.
Really?
Yes,
Nice.
absolutely, dude.
I remember the
Dude.
first time I heard the song "Christ is the Demon Crusher." I
Yes,
was like,
dude.
"What?" I was like, "Whoa!" I think this is like peaked for like what a Christian band should be.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
dude. Yeah, Skin Stripper as a whole was just
Yeah.
amazing. But Carry
Yeah.
On, Carryonic Hakatarian or whatever the
Yeah.
first EP or album they did, it actually the whole thing was on like one of Mortification's Steve Rose compilations called
Oh, cool.
Extreme Truth.
Yeah.
And that's when I
Yeah.
first heard them. I think was it Extreme Truth 3? I think it was Extreme Truth 3. And it
Yeah.
had Streams of Chaos, this group called Callus. Also, oh God, what was the name of the other band? It's escaping me right now. But anyway, there was another band in there too that kind of did like uh kind of operatic it's not power metal, it's more like operatic doom metal or something. But
Oh,
yeah,
cool.
it was like four bands. But yeah,
Yeah.
Vomitoria Corpulence,
That's sick.
uh
Yeah.
they 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 uh they closed
There,
the album out, and it was
there
just
was a
like
website that I used to go to. I'm trying. Was it called Rad Rockers or something like
yeah,
that?
Red
They
Rockers,
would
yeah.
Yes.
sell. They would sell
I
like
just posted
underground
about
Christian
them.
metal stuff.
Yes.
And I remember I bought like so many underground like black metal bands like Antester, Ling
Yeah,
Soul, God, what was Crimson Moonlight?
yeah.
Yeah, like all those bands that were like the European like Christian metal bands because I was big on Xtol.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oh
So
yeah.
that's I was gonna say that's kind of how see those compilations I learned about EXO and all those bands like via that the compilation that I think it
Yeah.
really kind of changed
Now,
my life was called
true story about Xtol.
yeah,
I got to see them like on their final American tour. They toured with Haste the Day, but they only
yeah,
played stuff from their new album at the time, which
right.
was the Blueprint Dives. But I
Okay.
remember I bumped into the guitar player and I was like, "Hey, you're the guitar player from X-Doll." And I remember he grabbed me by the shoulders and he shook me and he goes, "You are American fan of X-Doll?" And I was like, "Yeah, bro." And he goes, "Did you bring friends to see X-Doll tonight?" I was like, "Yeah, I have some friends with me. They're over there." And he goes, "Do you want to come to Van and hang out with all of X-Doll?" And I was like, "Are you serious right now?" And he goes, "Yes, please."
Wow.
And I remember he like dragged me to their like they had like a giant RV in at the
Hmm.
back of this venue, and he just started screaming. He's like, guys, American fan. And like
Ah,
they all pour out of the van and they're like, American fan. And they were so like excited because I guess like
that's
the story
awesome.
was that they weren't getting any press on this tour because of an issue with their tour manager at the time. So they were
Hmm.
like
Yeah.
super excited that they had any fans at all that knew who they were. So I remember they were just super appreciative and they were so like chatty with all of their fans that night. I would say out of all the bands I've ever met before, they were probably the nicest guys, hands down.
Yeah, I totally
That's
agree.
so
I
awesome.
finally I've been in contact with them like all of them through the years, and I finally met them at Furnace Fest.
Oh,
And
sweet.
Oh,
Yeah, they're
cool.
sweethearts.
yeah, Jason Sherlock. I actually went over to Australia a couple times and stayed with
Oh,
him.
nice.
And so I've been like just really cool with the mortification guys for
Yeah,
years and like decades at this point. But Extol, like Jason told me, he's like, whatever you do, meet the guys in Extol. That's what he told me.
that's awesome. Yeah,
Like,
they're big
like
sweethearts. I remember
yeah,
when they were for that album, it was like I think the three guys in Linksoul were actually
yeah,
in the band.
exactly. Uh-huh.
Yeah, and they were just
Oh,
so
okay.
sweet. Like
Yeah,
the one guitar player at the time, I think his name
Ula.
was Old Sween.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, Sween, not Old that's in the band now. That's a different Old.
yeah, yeah. Exactly,
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, yeah.
yeah. He's but that dude has a killer singing voice.
Yeah. Oh yeah, both of them, man. So actually, what's funny is on the Blueprint Dives tour, I was thinking, well, John didn't play. John, the bass player at that time, he didn't play
Right.
on Undeceived, but yeah, like quite a couple of them, like Tor, who was the other guitarist at the time, he played
Yeah.
on Undeceived. Of course, Peter was on Undeceived, and also,
Right.
of course,
Yeah.
David.
And the drummer
So it's
David. Yeah.
yeah, so it's crazy that
Yeah.
that band made Undeceived. A lot of them made Undeceived, and also
Oh
like
yeah, yeah.
Blueprint
They
is
were,
it's
yeah,
pretty
and I
wild.
remember they were like chatting us up about the weather because they were like, "Oh, like the weather's so warm in South Carolina." They were like, "Do you ever get
Yeah.
cold here?" And we were like, "Yeah, maybe like 30 degrees Fahrenheit." And they were like, "Oh, it's negative 30 degrees in Norway
Oh
right
yeah,
now."
and
Right.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
absolutely, dude. Like, but yeah, that tour, I remember there was so many weather issues at
Yeah.
different points. I know Ichthus, which is like I'm in Kentucky, so Ichthus is like right down the street, and I've even played Ichthus quite a bit. But that particular year, they were supposed to play Ichthus, and there was a tornado, man,
Oh
that just
no.
Oh
killed
wow.
everything. Yes,
So they
that
didn't
kind
have the
of
fest or what?
say what
Yeah.
now?
Did they cancel the festival?
I think they did that year. I mean,
Yeah.
like some people got to play a couple of days, but then when the weather got crazy, it was like the day before or the day of Extol supposed to, playing. So much,
Gotcha.
they end up. But that happened even with us a couple times. Like we did a show one night, and I think the showdown went after us, and Skillet was on the main stage that
Oh
night,
wow.
and we were supposed to be on the main stage the next day. But the next day, all everything, like the weather just went insane. So, like, I went there to play with like an all-star lineup of musicians on the main stage. And my metal show was actually just like a side show, you know what I'm saying, on the smaller stage. But yeah, we're the only ones that got to play out of the people that came with me. It was so
Oh
dumb,
wow.
dude. I'm
Yeah.
trying to think. It was some artist who was supposed to play with that year. It was either Toby Mac or Israel with New Breed, and we didn't get to do the collaboration we were going to do because of the weather. It's
Yeah.
just so dumb. But yeah, that happens a lot of times. There's certain seasons I think when it comes to touring. Like in the summer, you got to worry about like the tornadoes and just that kind
Oh
of
yeah.
crazy weather. And then in winter, of course, you got snow, like just the chances of snow. I haven't seen much snow yet this year, but dude, like it can get interesting, of course, So you have to
Mm-hmm.
really pace yourself as far as, obviously shows like
Dude,
for Unworthy or whoever else, just
we we definitely ain't got no snow in South Carolina, man. It's about
oh man,
75
yeah.
degrees on Christmas Day.
No
Yeah.
man. The
Crazy.
I'm trying to think, Sarah, I'm trying to think of how far you all don't have like things like alligators and stuff. Uh
Well, we
no.
do in the low country. Like where Dennis is from. You got
Yeah.
gators down there?
Yeah. No, I remember my grandfather. He took me and my wife to Charleston, where he was stationed in the Navy back in the day, and he was telling us the story about how there was like this little like water hole, and there was like an 8 foot gator there at the time named Charlie, and
Oh
this was like in
wow.
the 60s when he was stationed there. So
Hmm.
he's like, I wonder if he's still there. So he came and he was like, asked this girl, he's like, hey, is Charlie still around? And she goes, oh yeah, he's still in the watering hole. He's got a mate now and a bunch of children. He's like 13 feet long now. So I mean, gators apparently, I mean, they live for like over 100 years
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
like undisturbed. So like
Mhm.
this gator had lived in this little tiny watering hole, probably the size of our bedroom, fenced around, and people would just come out and throw him raw chicken. And like I remember my grandfather telling me a story where one of his roommates or whatever was like mowing the grass in the enclosure, and like said the alligator snapped and grabbed um,
The long.
the lawnmower and like dragged it under. And he said the dude hopped the fence. He was like, nope, ain't doing that again. Never mowing there. And said like,
Look,
they never saw that lawnmower. He took it with him to the bottom of that little pond or whatever.
I mean,
Wow.
y'all done named the alligator. It's got babies. Like
Oh
it's
yeah,
part of the
he was
family.
legendary there apparently. Yeah.
It's part of the family now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Wow.
funny,
That's
man.
that's
So,
amazing, dude.
okay, so this is a fun one. So, Dennis, tell us something about you that people watching this might not know.
I saw that in the chat today, and I was thinking about our drummer Zach did a podcast recently with the same guys that we did the podcast with here in our,
Mhm.
Fontana, and they were listening to the new EP on the podcast, and one of the guys goes, like hearing that come out of Dennis, you wouldn't expect like such a tiny little guy like him to be able to make those noises. Like he's not imposing at all. Like he's like if you saw Dennis like in a suit and tie, you would expect that he's like mowing his lawn at 7 a.m. and paying his taxes on time.
Yeah,
And it's kind of funny because like I'm 5'2", so like
right.
I mean, but there are iconic vocalists who were 5'2". Prince was 5'2". Ronnie James
Mhm.
Dio was 5'2",
I was about to
and
say
he
Ronnie
probably had
James.
the
Yeah,
Yeah.
most epic voice in
yeah,
metal. So I mean,
yeah.
it happens. But no, it's funny because we were the show we played one of the last shows we played was with Are you guys familiar with Dickie Dines on YouTube?
I'm not, but I'd check him out.
I'm not sure.
They're a channel. It's a guy named Jerry Dines, who's a famous guitar player, and his buddy Austin Dickey, who's a famous vocalist. So we play with Austin Dickey's band called Dark Watch. And the
Okay.
lead singer of the band that headlined with him, he came up to me and he goes, "Hey, dude, I gotta ask you a serious question, man." He goes, "What do you do for a living?" And I was like, "Oh, well, I work from home." And he goes, "But what do you do?" And I was like, "Oh, well, I'm like a payroll HR consultant."
Mhm.
And he goes, "Dude, I knew you had to have like a normal office job." He goes, "A guy that looks like you had to do something other than just like doing music for a living." He goes,
Oh
"Me and my
wow.
buddies had a conversation. We thought you were a dentist or a doctor."
Oh
And I
my
was like,
gosh.
"No, I couldn't do that." But he goes, "I knew you were." So like literally like a week later, we posted a video of me like typing away at my computer, and we posted it to the Instagram. It was like on stage, it's like me screaming with the fans, and then off stage, it's me typing.
Oh,
So,
that's so
I
funny.
think, but another big thing is like people I wouldn't know is like, I collect. I'm a big kid, so I collect toys. I mean, I have,
Oh, that's cool.
yeah, I have like all kinds of stuff: Godzilla, Mighty Max, Batman stuff,
Oh yeah,
Power
I'm Batman.
Rangers.
Nice.
Yeah. And then, of course, like I think I mentioned earlier, growing up in the '90s, I listened to a lot of pop and EDM, house club music, rave stuff that
Right.
you wouldn't really expect me to listen to. Like my wife really got me into stuff like Depeche Mode, Lady Gaga.
Yeah.
In fact, we're going to see Lady Gaga for the second time next month in LA, which I'm super excited for. That was probably one of the most fun concerts I've ever been to in my life.
Nice. I have to check her out.
And surprisingly, like what you wouldn't expect about Lady Gaga is she's super metal. Like
Oh
Yeah.
her
wow.
drummer, it actually was on the Chris Garza podcast with the Chris Garza's Suicide Silence.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Like he's a big deathcore drummer, and he was talking about
Huh.
how he incorporates that when he plays with Lady Gaga.
Nice. I
Never
love
would
it.
have known
If
that.
you go to her shows, like she has a metal band that actually does like all her instrument backing to her songs, and it's
Love it.
super
Okay.
operatic and super metal. So
Yeah.
like if you ever get a chance to see her live, I would suggest it. It's beyond fun and like yeah, surprisingly metal.
Yeah.
So like I don't think people would expect me to be into, you know, music like that, but it's enjoyable. In fact, I just bought me and my wife a synth so we can learn how to play a lot of our favorite 90s dance hits.
There we go. I
Oh,
love it.
cool.
I'm here
That's
for it.
awesome.
I'm here.
Yeah.
Well, cool. Well, here's my next question: Is what is your favorite thing about being a Christian?
Oh, man, that's a loaded question. I thought about this when I saw that you guys bring that up earlier in the
Hmm.
text too. Um, I mean, for me right now, like I mentioned earlier, just going on my spiritual journey in the Catholicism, is like just the feeling of being at church with my family again. Like, that was something I missed for years because I had been going to church by myself, and now going to church with my wife's family. My wife, one of my wife's sisters, just had a baby a few months ago, and then she brought the baby to the church for the first time
Okay.
this past week. So being there as a whole family together, the baby and the kids, and seeing them kind of get into this now and learning about what it means to be in church and to worship has just been really cool. So um, I think that, and I feel like there's always a spiritual community among Christians. Like we might not all be into the same kind of music or same kind of things, but I feel like we all have Jesus in common. So I feel like when you like meet someone that you could vibe with, you can chat the Bible for
Mhm.
upon hours, and it never gets old. And I feel like kind of like having that relationship with Jesus, you kind of always discover something new. Like I can read the
Hmm,
same thing, the Bible, a million times, and then one day, like, get a completely new interpretation out of it that I never
for
thought about
sure.
before. And I'm just like, oh wow, I just learned something completely new about Jesus after all these years that I never knew before. And I think that's, the one of the most beautiful things, and I think even essential things in having a relationship with Jesus is that you're never going to completely understand God.
Right,
Obviously, you're
right.
always learning and you're always growing and you're
It's a
always
beautiful.
learning new things about Jesus. And I think
Hmm.
that experience of every time you learn something new, it's just like poof, something goes off in your mind. And you're like, wow, fireworks.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. So, what can the Christian metal community do to support Unworthy?
I would say pray for us and show us grace. Realize that we're all human at the end of the day.
Hmm.
I was kind of like, I'll try not to say too much, but I know like about a week ago, somebody sent me like the story about the band No Treaty breaking up, and I guess there's some drama.
Hmm.
I don't really keep up with that stuff. I don't have social media. I don't really look into that, so I
Right.
didn't know that. I guess somebody was like, "Oh, what do you think of this?" And I'm like, "I don't know. I don't keep up with that stuff." But I
Yeah,
was just telling the guys because I know they were talking about it too. I was just like, well, hey, we're all human at the end of the day. Um, just because we're in a Christian band doesn't mean that we don't act any differently or
Right.
feel any differently than any other normal person. So I was like, I don't know what happened to that band or why they broke up, but I was like, the thing is, if we're not careful, it can always happen to us.
Right.
I
mm,
was like, we could always be susceptible to the same thing. So I was like, at the end of
sure.
the day, we just got to make sure that we're being accountable to each other. So,
That's right.
yeah,
Yeah.
I would just say, again, just understand, because we post memes, obviously, and like I said, I wear my conviction shirt, so sometimes people don't immediately understand it, and then of course, they're gonna find flack with it, and obviously,
Mhm.
even us being a metal band in the beginning is gonna be enough for some people to
Oh
find
yeah.
something wrong with it.
Yeah, no
I
doubt.
feel
Mhm.
like it's
Well, that
become more acceptable over the years, but it's still it's still an uphill battle every day.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Just ask John Cougar with his little scream. He does one
Yeah.
scream and all of a sudden
Oh
it's like,
yeah, yeah. I saw that was all over the news, and I was like, dude,
this is
why? I
dumb.
was like, why is Skillet of all bands
Right, of
in the
all
news
bands.
for?
Come on.
Yeah, of all
Yeah.
bands, I was like, have they
Wait till
not
they
heard
hear
Impending
Unworthy.
Doom?
Right, right.
Skillet is the hardest band out there. So, I mean, you know,
Right? That's the funny thing is like anytime that like we get a message or a comment that somebody compares us to Skillet, we just kind of chuckle and we're like, okay. I mean, if you like Skillet, that's cool, but I mean, I don't know if we would say that
if
we're in the same genre, but
I'm just
we
saying,
understand.
if you like Skillet, go listen to Unworthy.
Yeah, exactly.
Bam,
Now I will say
advertisement
that
done.
what was that one album of theirs that I really liked? Was it Collide? I think that had
Collide
like
with
the song
Thundercats.
"Savior" and "Forsaken." Like I mean,
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah,
they've had some heavy stuff. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah. Well, that's awesome, man. Well, dude, we appreciate it. This has been
yeah,
great, and
Right.
we'll hopefully gain you some new fans here,
yeah,
and
definitely.
yeah, continue to make good music and spread the gospel.
That's
Yeah,
right.
we'd love to keep in touch with
Amen.
you guys and chat more about music history sometime.
Right. Oh yeah, we'll keep in touch for sure, man. Blessings to
Yeah,
you, man.
yeah.
Peace
Thank
out.
you so much, guys.
All right.